Well, today the sun has come out, it's a beautiful day, and I'm out on the trek on the checkpoint. But today I'm wearing my untrendy white trainers because I put flat pedals on the bike. So I decided I would share my thoughts on clipless pedals. And do you really need them? So for a couple of months now, this bike has been making the most annoying clonking noise every time you pedal. It's been back to the bike shop a couple of times and they fiddled with it, but it didn't cure it. So there is a little bit of confirmation bias here. You see, the problem is that on the Checkpoint forums, a number of people have reported issues with bottom brackets. Several of them have had the bottom bracket replaced under warranty. So of course, with that in mind, my clonky bottom bracket, well, it must be one of the faulty ones. What else would you think? That bit of the A48 is quite interesting because the A48 is usually incredibly busy, but that little section past Margam always seems to be quite quiet, which makes it a lovely road for cycling. Anyway, back to the pedals. So after fiddling with the bike, between myself and the owner of the bike shop, we decided bottom bracket must be faulty. But then he said, just before we start pulling it apart, do me a favour, try some different pedals. So I put the flat pedals back on and the noise went away. So this is my second ride back on flat pedals. Has it made a difference to performance? Nowhere near as much as you might think, if at all. Seriously? Fucking wanker. So I'm just a 58-year-old bloke new to cycling. I talk a lot about my racing days, but that was 36 years ago. So much has changed, and in that 36 years I've become an unhealthy fat slob. So effectively I am new to cycling. But when I was racing, we had things called toe clips. There was a little cleat nailed to the bottom of your shoe, which clipped over the back of the pedal, and then you had this sort of cage thing that went over the front of your foot, and you pulled it tight with a strap. And to get your foot out, you went to take your arm off, so say your hand off the bar, lean down, and release the strap. And as a track cyclist, I rode a fixed wheel. So you had to do that while the pedals were going round. So when they decided toe clips were really cumbersome and difficult to use, came up with a system where the shoe clips into the pedal. So you're still riding clipped in. Even though they call them clipless because the toe clip is gone. My thoughts so far have been that clipless pedals do give you a better connection to the bike. And they do ensure that your foot stays in the correct position. So there are some advantages, without a doubt. Biggest advantage for me is shoes, because cycling shoes are made for cycling. Cycling shoes are good for getting the power from your leg through to the crank. They don't deform like trainers do. Very comfortable, and the whole thing just feels a lot smoother. I'm somewhat trepidatious today. The second part of this route is on roads and paths that I haven't ridden before, and it involves a lot of climbing. Not being a good climber is less than ideal when you live in South Wales. Do you want to know why cycling is so popular in Holland? Because it's flat. Do you want to know why There have been very few Dutch winners of the Tour de France, because to win the Tour de France you've got to be somebody with a lot of experience of going uphill. And I will say that I have a lot more confidence on the bike when I'm not clipped in, going through cycle paths and narrow lanes. Just knowing that if a car comes the other way and I have to stop, or when I come to the anti-cycle bars that seem to be at the end of every cycle path, I can just keep going. So, as is often the case, I can't give you a definitive answer. Because I'm just an old bloke who doesn't know too much. But what I will say is, if you're thinking about it, or if you're new to cycling, stay with your flat pedals until you find they're not doing what you want them to do anymore. It is nice to ride the cycle paths and be clear of the cars, but Britain is a nation of dog lovers. So wherever you go, there's going to be loads of people out with their dogs. Some people will just move out the way, hold their dogs back and let you go. Others will steadfastly refuse to get out of your way. I assume that they're part of the cycle-hating motorist brigade. See, as we come through here, no need to worry about unclipping. Just ease your way through, knowing that if you do stumble, your foot will go straight on the ground. I'm not saying don't get clipless pedals, not at all. Because there's a lot of situations where they just feel better. What I am saying is, don't get them just because it's the in thing. Don't get them just because serious cyclists use them and you want to be one of those. Alright, now comes the steep bit. Oh. This is another place where I find the flat pedal easier. It's on the gravel. And there's a lot of mud about. I mean, when I say easier, I don't mean as in easier to ride. I just mean more confidence. knowing that if I slip a bit, my foot is already straight out. So definitely on the road, being clipped in is just better in every aspect. But on the paths and the gravel, I prefer the flats. In terms of performance, I can assure you there's no difference. Certainly not at my level of riding. Most common thing in the world, reversing out of a car park without looking.